Welcome to Swansea University and the Cambridge English CELTA with English Language Training Services. This video focuses on the second part of the language-related tasks assignment. Part 1 looked at vocabulary. In this video, we will be looking at the second part of the assignment, which focuses on developing your understanding of the research required to then teach grammatical structures. So as we've mentioned, Assignment 2, Language-Related Tasks, is divided into two parts. Part 1, Vocabulary, and Part 2, Grammar. But, nevertheless, they have many features in common, insomuch as both require you to develop your skills of analysing and then presenting language in the classroom. If we move on to look at the course content and the assignments, we'll see how the language-related task assignments and Part 2, Grammar, fits into the course generally. As I've mentioned already, this assignment focuses on developing the skills of language analysis and awareness, and in particular, the identification of significant features of meaning, form, pronunciation and use for a range of vocabulary items in Part 1 and grammatical structures in Part 2. It also requires you to develop the skills to research these areas using relevant source material, in the case of Part 2, grammar books. And we want to make it clear right now that although this may sound quite academic or theoretical, in fact, both parts of the language-related tasks assignment are designed to be highly practical, as they reflect the kind of activity that is expected of you as an English language teacher, not just on CELTA, but also ongoing in your career, in your first job and in subsequent jobs, where every English language teacher is expected to undertake research into a language point in order to develop their own confidence and understanding regarding the language structure, but then be able to explain it and help students to use it in the classroom. This next slide, Assignment Requirements, explains the requirements of the assignment as they relate to you, but also to us as CELTA trainers running the course. Please make sure that you have understood these and ask us at any time if you have any questions. Please note that it is not uncommon for trainees to be asked to resubmit assignments during the course, so please don't worry if this happens to you. Detailed feedback is given on all assignments and you will be supported in order to help you if you are asked to resubmit this assignment or indeed any others. So how exactly do we go about supporting you on the course and supporting you with Part 2 of the language-related task, looking at grammar? Well, as you're doing now, we have this video which explains in more detail what is expected of you, but we also recommend that you have a good look at the assignment pack and have a copy of it open as you're watching the video so you can refer to it at the relevant points. The first part of the assignment pack details the assignment aims and assessment criteria, and it's a very good idea to have a look at these before you start the assignment. We'd like to bring your notice here to the word limit, which, as with all other CELTA assignments, is between 750 and 1,000 words. However, particularly for Part 1 and Part 2 of the language-related tasks, we also encourage you to read the model answers that we provide you with in the assignment pack, as this will give you a clear understanding of the level of detail expected for each part of the assignment and each subsection. The assignment task rubric is of course very important, as this tells you exactly what is expected expected of you in Part 2 of the language-related task, which is in fact, as you can see, divided into 7 sections. Part 1 asks you to identify the structure and its key elements of meaning, and this can perhaps be made clearer if we refer you to the model answer, in which you are given a sentence to analyse. I managed to reach the top. Here, rather than looking at the vocabulary, the meaning of the verb manage, you here look at its structure. I managed to reach the top. And here, in the identification of structure, you would be expected to identify the verb form as being the past simple of the regular verb to manage. And in terms of its meaning, here we're looking at the meaning of the past simple rather than the meaning of the verb manage. So here you would be expected to explain that the past simple is used in this sentence for a single action which was completed in the past. The second part of the assignment task rubric explains the requirement of writing an example sentence of your own to show the meaning of the item in context. The example we give you: last year I decided to climb a very high mountain. I'm not very fit, so it was quite difficult. About halfway up I nearly gave up, but finally I managed to reach the top. So here the idea is that you exemplify the meaning of the structure in a context that illustrates the example sentence given to you. Part 3 looks at checking meaning, and here there are a number of ways that you can do this for a grammatical structure. We recommend that you look at concept checking questions, which you'll be familiar with from Part 1, vocabulary, but expand this to look at timelines and also take into account other possible checking strategies. These, for example, might include the use of gesture in order to identify time, pointing forward into the future, and a hand gesture behind the back of your head to indicate the past. Part 4 requires you to analyse the nuts and bolts of the structure. And this is where you need to start using, in some considerable detail, some of the meta-language, the terminology of English language teaching. So when looking at I managed to reach the top, you'd be talking about I as a subject pronoun, managed as a regular past simple, which is formed by adding d or ed to the root of the verb, the bare form, the infinitive, and then what follows to reach the top, the full infinitive. Part 5 asks you to look at problems and confusions which are associated with the structure. And Part 7 does something similar. It asks you to look at problems and confusions associated with pronunciation. And for both Parts 5 and Part 7, you should provide strategies for overcoming these problems. You'll have noticed I've skipped past 6. This is a phonemic transcription of the structure, and again is very similar to what we ask you to do in Part 1, vocabulary. But notice here that connected speech becomes even more important. If we think about how we say managed to quickly in natural English, you notice that the second word, which is written to, its pronunciation is shortened to t. And it's these focuses on rapid speech that are important in this second part of the assignment. Notice too how managed to, that the d at the end of managed, followed by the t of t, kind of come together, managed to. And in fact, the d sound almost disappears. And this is something you would be expected to be able to pick up on in Part 6 of the assignment. So that's the assignment rubric in quite some detail. Notice how with the other assignments and assignment packs, we give you a checklist. Make sure that you can answer yes to each question here. If there's anything that you're unsure of or anything which is not clear, obviously ask us. But remember that if there's any section here which you cannot answer yes to, the chances are you'll be asked to resubmit. We also give you detailed guidelines, As with the other assignments, we encourage you to read these in detail, highlighting the key information which will enable you to answer the task correctly. Again, a detailed list of reference books are provided. Please use these as they are an invaluable source of information, especially as they relate to problems with structure and pronunciation, because many books published, for example, by authors like Martin Parrott, Jim Scrivener and Rosemary Aitken, not only explain the grammar to you, but give you ideas about the problems that students typically face when using them. So in combination with this reference material, you can also think about your own experience of learning other languages and how speakers of those languages might have difficulty with English, but you can also reflect on the performance of your students in your 2TP groups. Are there any elements of grammar which are asked about in the question that you've noticed that your students struggle with in class? And this can be a really useful way of showing your understanding of the relationship between the classroom and the research that is required of an English language teacher. As ever, the assignment tips page is really helpful, as this identifies the common causes of resubmission on this particular assignment. Similar to the vocab, we ask students to pay particular attention to areas around insufficient research, unclear example sentences, and inappropriate or incomplete techniques for testing and checking understanding. Notice also that, again in this assignment, as with the vocabulary, the answers for concept checking questions are required, and if they're left out, you will be asked to resubmit. Inaccurate analysis of form is a big problem for this assignment. Make sure that you really understand the nuts and bolts of the language that you are asked to analyse, and that you use the correct terminology in sufficient detail. And this is where the model answer comes in handy, because it shows you the level of detail required. As far as pronunciation is required, there may be, as I've mentioned already, an insufficient focus on fast speech, so noticing what happens to the d at the end of managed, or the way in which to is shortened to t, and also insufficient work on how to overcome these problems of form and pronunciation, how to help students in the classroom to overcome them. The model answer is a really useful tool here. It tells you what to expect. Spend some time looking at this and refer back to it when answering the 3 questions that we ask you to complete as part of the assignment. And then finally, the assignment answer booklet. This prompts you in some detail to answer each of the 7 sections which make up each question. Make sure you complete all of them in order to avoid missing out a part and therefore being asked to resubmit. Well, we hope that you found this video useful, and please remember that it is one of many that we provide on the course. We provide a general overview of each assignment and then a more detailed, specific video which relates to how you are expected to complete the assignment in order to pass the Swansea University Cambridge English CELTA. If the video has prompted you to find out more, you might be interested in applying for a course or just want more information, then please contact us. Our contact details are given here on this final slide. You can contact us by email, elts@swansea.ac.uk, by phone, or by contacting our teacher training coordinator, Peter Neville. Many thanks for listening.